Hey, this is Matt with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and this is Wednesday, May 30th. This will serve as our chart lesson today. And I've kind of backed out here so you can see the big picture. Before I get started, I did want to say this, though. No sooner than I made the comment yesterday about us disappearing from the Google search engine rankings, suddenly and mysteriously we showed right back up on the first page just like we were before. And so I don't know if my comments had anything to do with it. I don't know if somebody complained about the comments I made, and if you listen to my stuff, you already know what I'm talking about. If not, it's no big deal. But I did want to say, hey, we're back. I don't know what happened. I got a note from Google saying they didn't know what I was talking about, but there's no doubt we were, all the way through the holidays there, we did not show up in the Google rankings anywhere for our site. We were completely gone, and so regardless of what they're telling me, we weren't there, and suddenly we're back just as mysteriously as we disappeared. And I really thought it had something to do with my comments, and I still think that maybe it did, but maybe they looked at and I can tell you this: I see where Google came and looked at every page on our website and manually. So they came and looked. So somebody said something to them, and they probably pulled us temporarily while they checked it out, and I guess they liked what they saw when they checked it out, because now we're back and we're actually a little stronger than we were before we left. So sometimes maybe it works out in our favor in the end. But that's all I'm going to say about that. Let's go to the chart lessons. We had a bigger channel off the trend. We had this trend line right off here, and if you drew it off these first couple of swings right in here, that brought you into, that kind of alerted you to where to be looking for a reversal later this afternoon. And we had this little tighter channel right down here for most of the trading day that started right after the 8:30 hour. And so, and somebody sent me let me back out of here where you can see this a little better. Somebody sent me, I actually got a couple of emails. Somebody said this was a really hard trading day for them, and they're really struggling. And I can see that because this is a real tight, choppy range, although it is a steady downtrend. And as we're making lower highs and lower lows all the way down through here. And if you just start finding, you got to find your trend lines. That's the key to it. And if you had these trend lines, of course, now it looks easy after the fact, and it is a whole lot easier after the fact. But you got to start drawing these trend lines during the day. And let me show you. This one right here was hard to find, but all that one is a copy of that. And that, that's how I do it a lot of times. So you got to learn how to find these trend lines. And this one was not hard to find, and you could have had this one in place by right around 9 o'clock. Off those two swings, draw it, and then you drag it up here to the top, and it's amazing how well that fits. And then you got your channel right there. And this one here, I drew off here, and I copied it and drug it down to the low, and that would have alerted you to where we were going to bounce at 8:30, and that's exactly what happened. And once you touch down here, you're usually going to work your way back up and touch over here, and that's what happened. But you see how hard the market struggled. It was really weak today, and that's all there is to it. We're trying to come back. All the prices do is they go and they test support and resistance, and they were working lower here, and we finally touched resistance or support down here. So now we're going to go test resistance, and but that's how much the prices struggled to get higher to test that resistance. But there's also, even if you didn't see that, you should have had this across here, and I should have already had this on here, but I didn't. And it's probably more like that right there. So even if you didn't find that larger trend line, well, I can't get that line there. So I like to do this ahead of time. But anyway, there's a resistance line right across there, just like that. Let's make this a little bigger. And that's what we couldn't get above. And even though we were working lower, we couldn't get above this. And you could have either used this line or this line. And this one came into play a whole lot more. And you can see I did the reversals. There was actually some entries right in here, but I'll talk about all that. Let's go do the trades now. Let me back out where you can see this a little better. We'll go through the trades. This one right here, all this was a failed break. We had this little congestion area, a little overlapping bars, and we broke out of it and failed. So going short right there's a good trade, and there you go, easy scalp, nothing more. And then we bounced and we came back up here. There was actually another entry here. I'm not sure why I didn't mark that one. For some reason I didn't like that one. It's definitely a good trade. I don't know why I didn't mark it. But anyway, there's a short right there. Oh, I know what it is. We got 1, 2, 3 overlapping bars, and those are really 2. A lot of times these up-down bars are risky, so it would have been better to wait and enter right here, and I still don't have it marked. But let me go ahead and just put a circle there because that was a good trade if you took it. If you didn't take it, no big deal. It was, we were still kind of iffy at this point, and we knew we had resistance across here. That's fairly easy to see. It should be. But each time we're going down, we're making lower lows, and the highs are getting lower. So that tells you the buyers are getting stronger and the sellers are getting weaker. And, even though neither one is really taking over the market, the sellers are winning out all the way down here. And that's why the market keeps working lower. And, again, we just keep working between support and resistance. And so the key is not trying to enter in the middle of all this stuff. Only enter down here, and really you shouldn't even take any longs, but I marked these because I took them and because they were good trades. By this time right here, I didn't mark this one because it really wasn't clear yet if this was going to be a channel or not, but by the time we bounced again right here, this was a good entry, and if you waited to enter here, that was okay. But really this was the ideal bar because it's a breakout of that congestion for one thing, so it's probably going to be a failed break lower. It bounced right off that trend line that we already had coming down through there. And so this was a great trade, and this was an easy move all the way back to the top, and it actually went a little further. It tried to come back up here, and actually this should have been right here. I moved it. It came right up here and tested this area again and turned right back down, and there's you a nice short. That's a nice bearish reversal bar, and it ticked higher first, so it probably trapped some longs right there, the people that aren't paying attention to resistance up here, so they get trapped on the long side. So going short right there is a good trade, and it took a little while to work lower, and you probably didn't get a runner out of that, but it's an easy scalp, and you actually should have gone short right here. Okay, sorry, I had a little interruption there. Now I can't remember where we were. Well, I think we were talking about this long right here, but hopefully you understand why that's a long. And I was hesitant to mark these because generally I don't recommend that people counter trend trade, but if you were smart enough to see these, because not only that, you got this, that's a failed break lower. Can you see that? You got this kind of triple bottom here, and it's a failed break lower. Is all this overlap, and you know what's going to happen is prices are going to snap back 9 times out of 10. And that's why I usually take those trades. So hopefully you can see that. We're more interested in prices coming across this top really right now. Actually, I think we were talking about this trade, weren't we, maybe? Because the other was a trap here. Yeah, the short was right here. And if you waited till right here, it was okay. You might have had to ride out a little bit of this pullback, but as long as you had your stop above the signal bar, which is right here, you see your stop was never in jeopardy. And when you get a big bar like this, once it goes higher first, if it hasn't broke lower, you can drop a stop in here. Even if it's already gone lower and it goes higher, if it comes back down, you can go ahead and put your stop back in there. One tick below that bar, and that was the place to enter. And you would have been out before it bounced back. And even if you waited till here, as long as your stop was above the signal bar, you're okay. And that's the way we teach it. And there were actually entries right in here too, but there's just, by this time, there's so many overlapping bars. Prices are really trying to go higher, but they just can't do it, and so they turn and they go down. The better entry was right here. This is basically a breakout pullback short, and when that resistance line held basically to the tick there, almost, that was a good setup. So going short right here was the better entry, and that's just 2 legs back. Can you see that? One leg pull back, second leg, it's just a 2-legged pull back to the trend line, and that's all most of these are. That's what this is. Here's one leg pull back, second leg, and then 2 legs up. one leg, pull back. Actually, it's all the way up to here, pull back, and then here. So that's a second entry short. But it really was kind of risky entering here because there's just so many overlapping bars. So I didn't mark anything. If you took them, they worked. As long as you kept your stop above the signal bar, hey, they worked. You just would have had to ride out that, and it was better to wait till over here and see this resistance line hold perfectly right there, and that's a nice bearish bar. And then you really want to wait for a bar in your favor. So you might have got in right here, but and by the time this one triggered, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 overlapping bars. So that's congestion. You don't want to enter there. And then you see once they broke out of that little congestion area, it failed and immediately reversed. And so you drop your order right there, and boom, there it goes. And so you want to try to, the key, again, going back to answer the question for the gentleman that asked me about having a hard time today, if you're entering in the middle of all this, you're gonna have a hard time. Look at all that. You don't enter in there. Wait for the failed breakout. You know, you had to wait for right here, or you had to wait till we came back and tested it again right here. And so don't try entering in the middle of all this. Wait till you get to the key entry points. You hear me talk about key entry points. The key entry points are this resistance line here, this support line that's running across here, and it keeps moving lower. And really, on a day like this where you're trending lower, you're better off just to wait on the resistance and don't worry about the support. I marked them. If you saw them and took them, that's okay. But try to stay away from that, because that's what will get you more than any. If you tried to enter long anywhere in here, you were getting burned. I mean, even if you went short, if you just held on through all the overlap, you were okay to down here. But if you start getting long, you get in trouble. So just remember that. And the other key entry points are along this line right here. So if you entered anywhere along this line and kept your stop above the signal bar, you were good. Even if you entered in this mess here, you were still good. You never would have got stopped out. And that's the key to this thing, is staying with those key entry points and having the patience to know better than to enter in the middle of all this, or the middle of all this, or the middle of all that. Wait till you get to the key entry points, which is strong support and strong resistance. And then here was another one right here. You could have got tricked right here, and I want to talk about that. You know, I like to find some places where you can get tricked, and this is one of them right here. You could have easily gone short right there, because that's coming right off that resistance line. And it is a failed break out of all this almost, but that would have been your only clue to stay out, was the fact that you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 overlapping bars, and at least one of them's a doji. So that's congestion. So you figure you got to wait for a failed break higher, and there it is right there. Plus it's also coming off that resistance line, and evidently I still don't have this line straight. I think it should look just like that right there. I'm a perfectionist, you can tell. I'll draw these lines and move them around till I get them just right until they're perfect. But anyway, needless to say, that's resistance across there. And again, here's another one right here, or right here. And as long as you kept your stop above the signal bar, you're okay. And but that's the key, is you got to wait for the strong support and resistance, which are the key entry points that I'm always talking about. And there was actually another long down here. It's really getting late in the day, so it's getting risky down here. But you see, you were better off to wait till prices got up here and work their way back down again. No entries right in there, because that's all overlap. But here's a breakout pullback short, because see, here's your support right across there. You actually would have been right there. So you could have entered there or there. Those are both breakout pullback shorts, and all this one is another pullback to double test this, because that wasn't, a lot of people probably weren't sure if that was a breakout pullback. And plus you had to go short under a bar that's even still got a little bit of a green tint, and it's a doji, so it's better off to wait one that's got more of a bearish slant like that. So that was the best entry. And plus that's 2 tries to come back to that EMA, and notice how the prices close below it each time, and there's your entry. So hopefully that all makes sense. And if you're trying to enter in the middle, remember, in the middle of all these moves, that's where it gets tricky and where it gets really dicey. And if it fails like right here, it's rare. You notice that's probably the only trade that came up to a key entry point and still worked higher today is right there. So if you took them all, that's the only one that probably would have failed on you right there. And all you had to do is get back in right here, and you make it all back on the way back down. So remember that, and that's why I'm always saying you can't pick and choose. Just take them all, and that way you know that it works 90% of the time. You're going to get it right 9 out of 10 times. But if you start picking and choosing, and you only take 2 out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that we had, and if you only take 2, and then you got to have, and one of them is the failure, which I don't know why, but the odds say it almost always will be. And so then you got to make 2 trades to get back ahead again. And so keep that in mind. Just remember, key entry points. I can't say that enough. And where are the key entry points? The support and resistance, which are your flat lines and your trend lines. All trend lines are, I'll say this all the time, I'll say it again, all this trend line is right down through here is a resistance area, and it's no different than this one right here, except that it's slanted, and that it's still strong resistance every time prices come back to that area. So remember that, and look how if you clone that, it's just strong support every time it comes back to that area. So if you're good enough, you can buy it down there every time. Not once did it break through, except down here, and that's at the closing or whatever. So and it's bouncing now. So just remember that, and hopefully you had a good trading day. If you didn't, try to find those trend lines. That's the key. Once you see the lines, it's easy. Just wait for prices to come back to those lines. Find those lines, and usually it takes 2. You know, the third. Usually the third touch that holds is the verification. You get your lines off the first 2, and if you get verification by the third one, then you know it's pretty good. And you see, then it was okay to take all the rest of them. And you probably could have even taken that one. I can't tell if there's 5 ticks in there or not, but it probably was. And again, I don't recommend that since the trend is down, your better bets are taking all of these. And if you'd taken all of those, you'd have made money. You might have lost on that one, but if you're paying attention to the overlapping bars, that would have been enough to keep you out right there. And let me show you this too before we go. I meant to talk about it a minute ago. So let's say you did get trapped here. Prices work lower. When that ended as a doji, that's not a good sign, because now you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 overlapping bars there, and at least 3 of them are dojis. What is that telling you? Remember the rule: 3 or more overlapping bars, at least one of them is a doji. That's congestion. And if you're in congestion, the odds are prices are going to break out and fail and reverse. And look what happened. Prices broke out of this congestion. Here's the congestion area. Let me circle that. That right there is the congestion area. And look what happened when prices broke out. They instantly failed and worked lower. And that's what's going to happen. So stay out of this. But anyway, going back to the trade, let's assume you get trapped right here. You put your stop right there, prices tick lower, and you're looking for them to run all the way back down here, and suddenly this bar closes as a doji. Well, I can tell you what I would have done if I was stuck in that trade. I would go ahead and put me a exit order right here, and you would have got out on that next bar, or you could have got out on that one either. Either one of them you could have got out on. And you either break even or you make a tick. If somebody walks by on the street all day long and hands you a $12 bill, would you be willing to take it? I would, and I guess that's what is that what you make off a tick? Is it $12? By the time you take your I forget, to be honest with you. It's $12.50. No, you make $8. It's about $8 or $9 you'd make. So hey, if you can stand on a corner all day long and somebody can bring you by, walks by and hands you $10, do you think you can make a lot of money at the end of the day? Well, I think you probably could. Well, it's the same thing with trades. If you can just make a tick off a bunch of trades every day, you can still make money trading the market. I'm not suggesting that you go for a single tick. Don't take that the wrong way. But if you can get out with a tick, don't be greedy. If it's not looking, if it didn't go lower here like you expected, then something is wrong, and that's your clue to get out quick. And you know, you might even just get out at break even, where all you cost you is your commission. But hopefully you can get out with a tick, and you could have right here. Once this closed right here, I would have gone ahead and if it came back down here again and ticked lower, I'd have just exited and taken my tick and then waited for this trade and made all my money right there. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We're at 20 minutes today. Hopefully that was a good lesson on what to do if you do get trapped. And that's all that is. That's a short trap. And then they ran it higher and trapped the longs. And that's the ES is notorious for that. And so anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.